Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Our Code podcast. I'm Liu, and I'm here with Dee.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
You ready to get into this one?
Yes, I am.
Nice. Today we're going to be talking about who we are outside of parenthood. I really do feel it's something that's is another thing that I've been really dealing with right now, because for those who parenthood outside of even anyone that you're caregiver for, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be like your children, but it's something that I've now recently, like in my life, I'm kind of stopped and I've wondered, like, who am I if I'm not a mom or if I'm not being needed, right? Or even for dads too, not just parents in general, right? Like not just a mom, but dads who, who am I when I'm not a mom, when I'm not, a parent, when I'm not a spouse, when I'm not an employee, a provider, a caregiver, a fixer? Who am I underneath all those roles? Because for so many of us, everything just happens so fast, right? And I think like right now that my kids are entering that stage where they're not necessarily needing us as much. So then there's more of a pause in between. Like now I have more of a pause moments, right? So I start questioning these things. Many of us spend years raising children. We spend years building careers, paying bills, showing up for everyone, solving problems, being needed, right? And then at some point things just shift. Our kids get older, they stop needing us like in the same way that they used to need us. The schedules change and things just again get quieter. And then we're asked like, okay, now what do I do with myself? Or who am I? What do I do? So in today's conversation, it's not really going to be much about parenting, but it's going to be about identity, like our identity outside of parenting. It's going to be about what happens when we spend much of our lives taking care of someone else or everyone else, and we forget to ask, what is it that we need? What is it that lights us up? What brings us joy? What makes us feel alive? And maybe one of the scariest questions that I've found myself recently asking is, if nobody needed anything from me, like at all, like let's say in the next 2-3 days or in this week, if nobody needed anything from me this week, would I even know what to do with myself? And those are the questions that I'm just like, they're really like, it's digging, and I'm trying to figure that out. So that's what we're going to talk about, our identity outside of parenthood or caretaking or whatever. So are you ready?
Yep. I think this conversation will definitely tie in roles and identity. I think it could open a lot of different perspectives for us to see ourselves. Actually, the purpose of it is to see ourselves,
right,
under the roles, under the identity. Like, who are we when we are not playing these roles, and who are we when we don't need that identity anymore, right? And one of the loudest ones for us in this moment is motherhood. Well, yeah, because we're mothers in this moment, right? Or it could be, for others, it could be an employee. For others, it could be a wife or a husband. It just depends on what chapter the person is, right?
Yeah, what chapter of life you're in. So, TV, I'd ask you, who do you think you were before becoming a parent?
Before I became a parent, I was very young. I was 17 and a half when I had my daughter, and I was very young, right? I was still a kid in so many ways, right? I don't remember at that time having any labels to myself or having any identities that I would really identify myself. I think at that age I was more free from the need to be identified through anything. I think after I had her, for sure, roles and identities and demands of who I had to be or who I had to become, how I had to act because now I'm a mom, you know, that started playing for sure. After.
I can definitely see. And I think like, yeah, 17 is young. I definitely do. Like I was thinking I was 21 when I first got pregnant. Right. And even then, like in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, we're young, you know? But for sure, like for me, I just remember, obviously it was making questionable decisions and stuff and being young and everything. And looking back now, I think for me, I don't really know, similar to you, like I didn't really have an identity. I think at that time is trying to really just exploring and then trying to find who you were. That was never in my head. Like I never knew that that was even an option, that I can even find who I really was, right? I know for sure that at that young age I was wanting to belong somewhere. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel needed. And the more I actually, you know, the more that I like worked on this episode, trying to figure this out and answering my own questions, I learned that I didn't like consciously choose to be a mom. I didn't choose that to be as my identity, like to be a motherhood, to be a mom. But I wanted that though. Like I wanted to create a family. I remember at that age, I wanted to leave my home. I was searching for a home. I was searching to belong somewhere. I wanted a place where I mattered and where I could create something for myself. And I wanted to create a family. I didn't know what obviously, like I said, consciously, it wasn't like, oh, my identity is going to be being a mom. But I felt that I was going to get all of that by doing that, right? So I didn't have an identity. I have no clue who I was. Now that I'm working on it, I do know, but then I didn't. I just know that I wanted to have something for me and I wanted to belong in somewhere, right? So we were young, right? Do you ever think about parts of you that you had to put on hold for motherhood? Like anything that you had to put on hold, like in your life? I mean, that now you can think back and say like, man, I had to put all that, like all of that stuff had to go. We went straight from like being kids into being moms.
Yeah, I remember a moment. I used to write a lot when I was young. I used to have like a lot of journals and I used to like write my feelings and, you know, everything on it. And I remember a specific day after I had my daughter, no, right before I had my daughter, probably months before I had her, I remember burning them and saying like, okay, I can't have this anymore. I can't write anymore because I'm going to be a mom and now I'm going to be a wife at 18 years old. And the world has told me that this is not who I could be because my mom said that now I have to be A, B, C, and D, right? So then in that moment, I remember grabbing them all and burning them and never wrote again until now, until I was 33 years old. Like, double the time or almost triple the time of that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I know that at that moment, I abandoned that part of myself, right?
For sure. I think that's what we did. Like the biggest thing that we did was put our identity on hold, right? Because instead of figuring out who we were, at least for me, who I was at that time, instead of figuring out what kind of life I wanted and what I wanted for myself, I went straight into parenthood, right? And not only did I go straight into parenthood, I also went into parenthood with a lot of baggage, right? With trauma, I went into my nervous system that was already operating on high alert. Like I was already, I already had a whole bunch of stuff carrying with me, and I went into parenthood. So I never allowed myself to dream. I just didn't know that was even a thing. I didn't allow myself to create anything because I I've mentioned it before, and it's crazy to even think about it, but I never thought of myself as a creative person. I didn't spend any time thinking about my interests because I genuinely felt, after having my son, I felt that my only interest should be my son. You know, doesn't mean that I didn't do other things. I did, because we're young and we're exploring, right? But everything that I did, it came back with guilt after I did whatever. You know, if we went out or whatever, I mean, you know, you and I, we used to go out a lot, and the guilt that carried on after, right? So yeah, I think going straight into parenthood is like, my interest should be my kid, right? And so that's a lot of pressure to put on someone, on a role, and where you don't even know who where you're supposed to. That was a phase in our lives where we're supposed to be figuring ourselves out, and then we just said, nope, we're only parents.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, in that moment is when the identity was formed.
Yeah.
So an identity is formed, it begins from a need, right? First, it's a need. Okay, the baby, I get pregnant, the baby's born. Now there's a need to create a mom identity or role, right? So the need is born first, then the role is created. Okay, the baby's born, I must take on the role as a mom, right? And once the role is done, because there's no awareness after the role is created, we then adopt the identity as a mom. But in reality, what should happen is the need is there. Obviously, we have a baby, there's a need. Now there's a role that we must take on, which is the mother, right? But it's in that moment that there should be awareness that we don't need to form an identity. There's only a need to have awareness that a mother role is needed to mother our child. But we don't have that information. We just simply create an identity, and that identity then adopts behaviors, patterns, thoughts, a whole world around it, right? And then that child, what ends up happening once the identity has been born, then that child will validate you through its whole childhood, because you look at your child and the child says, you're my mom. But what happens when that child starts growing up, is no longer a baby, is no longer going to validate your identity, what happens then, right? Yep. Because that child will not serve as your mirror the whole life. You will always have the role of a mother. I don't think that ever ends. There's roles that have a beginning and there's roles that have an ending, right? Like the role of an employee of a certain company. You can have that role, but it's got a beginning and an ending, right? Motherhood doesn't have an ending. Motherhood has a beginning, and your child grows up and you're still your child's stages. Mother. It's just, it only has different stages. So when the child's no longer validating you the way it used to validate you when he or she was a kid, that's when the identity starts screaming, saying like, am I going to die? Yeah. Like, because that person's not validating me anymore. Yeah. And that's when the deeper questions start coming, because the identity starts saying, okay, I'm not being validated anymore.
Yeah. At what point do you feel that you had that awareness where you realized that your identity had become wrapped up in parenthood?
Oh, it still is. I'm still learning I'm about to be 39, and I'm now learning that motherhood was never my full identity, right? I'm just learning that. But I've been a mother for 21 years. For 21 years, I thought that's who I was, but that's not who I am. And when you get lost in that identity of motherhood or wife or whatever identity, you suffer tremendously, because then you feel like if this is all that I am, then there's no other interests, there's no other dreams, there's no other goals. And if you do go after other dreams and your goals, you feel that guilt. You feel that pressure of like, why? You should only be a mom or you should only be a wife, right? So that's when there's awakening starts happening so that you can see that you're not those identities, right? And that's what I'm currently undergoing, like releasing all those identities, releasing the roles, understanding that, yes, I have roles, but they don't define me. That's not who I am. You know what I mean?
Like separating.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, okay, if you say I am a mother or I am a father or I am a wife, let's say a mother, delete I am a mother, delete mother, what's left? The I am, right? If you say I am a wife and you delete wife, what's left? The I am. The I am, the word I am is the creator, like the energy that created everything, source, right? So I am when we say that, right? So what's left? The I am. You can't define the I am with anything. There's not a definition that you can define that with. We cannot define ourselves. There's no definition. There's no answer to the question of who am I? Yeah. You would be limiting yourself if we answer that, if we even try to answer that. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah. If you think, for sure. Right. I mean, I think it's that is where people get stuck, you know? And I see it often where people say, well, I live my life for my kids. Like, I am only a mom. Like, this is what my only role is to be a mom, or, you know.
And there's others that fight it. Yeah. And there's others that are like, no, I'm not just a mom. I'm not. No. You know? Yeah. There's also others that fight it.
Yeah, you're right.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things where, as for me, for sure, it's now that I'm actually around the same time that you know, when I was around 39 years old, is when, like 30, 40 is when I started realizing, wait a minute, you know? And it's because these things started, my children started getting to an age where, again, they were giving me those silence gaps. You know, where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not chasing them. I'm not like, you know, I don't like, it's not just all attention to them. And then I'm like, okay. So I'm starting to get these little bursts of gaps of silence. And that silence is loud. It started getting louder. And then that's when I had to figure out, like, okay, maybe this is not the only thing I'm supposed to do. And now I'm really like, I'm deep into it. Like, now I'm thinking, okay, they're going to start, you know, my son is already, like, he goes back and forth from my house to his dad's house. So I see him not as often as I used to. And he's doing school or college. And so it's like moments where I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I just have to kind of like trust, you know. Then my other daughter's going to go in high school and the other one in middle school. And it's just all new stages. And, I think for me, it's been, what is it like now that I'm here? The question is now, what do I do with myself? Right. Like, now what is it that Lou wants to do? Like, who am I? And trying to find myself. And like you said right now, giving up myself a definition. I don't know how I can define it, you know? I mean, I feel like I can, but I'm in the middle of it for sure.
Yeah, I feel that. You know, the more we ask ourselves that question of who am I, right? It's one of those questions that you have to be very mindful of how you're answering it, because what you can do easily is replace one identity with another. That's it. Oh, I was a mother. Oh no, now I'm not a mother. Now I'm an empty nester. And that's just a new identity, right? So words cannot define the vastness or the divinity of who we are. Like, our language is so limited to define. It's like us trying to fully define God. We can't, right? We only define him in little ways, or define a higher power, whatever we believe in. in certain ways, but we don't have the exact full definition. We think we do.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same with us. We can't answer that question fully. We could try, you know, and if we tried, I mean, we could find some words to define us. I think for me, I narrowed down that if I had to answer that question, it would be that I am everything, and that I am awareness. And that in itself it's as best as I can define who am I, right?
Yeah, because there's moments in our lives and so many different stages in our lives that change, evolve, that we evolve into, you know. So who I was last year, who I was 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, I'm not anymore, right? So it's really hard to pinpoint and define. But for sure, now that there's more time, like I'm saying, now that there's more time, what is it that we choose, you know, to do with it? So, I mean, dealing with self-identity is like, do you struggle with the guilt when you choose something for you? When TV chooses something that TV wants to do, or TV is realizing who she is, and then do you struggle with that?
Yeah, I feel like what I struggle with the most is I will tend to the energies that are the loudest instead of tending to my own calling. Like if, like, let's say something breaks out, like, I don't know, my mom calls me, she's like, oh my God, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. But I was in the middle of creating something, calling for myself. I'll drop the calling and then tend to the fire, right? I think that's the kind of guilt I'm dealing with right now, and the pressure, and then that's the kind of balance I'm trying to create in the moment. Of course, like also learning balance as a mom. That's like something that, I mean, I don't think it just, that journey in itself, it doesn't end, because there's got to be so much balance when we're parents, because we could get lost and intertwined in those identities so quickly that we lose ourselves, that we don't even know who we are anymore, fast, like really, really fast. And that can happen in relationships and parenthood and anything, and anything that you're a part of, not just in like motherhood and as being an employee. You could think you're the company itself. You can think you are your role. I was telling my husband earlier, like, you know, I feel that a lot of, like, in his case, right, he was hurting because he was he was thinking he was the identity. So, like, you know, imagine you get intertwined with the identity that you are your title of your job. Where are you gonna head? Like, destruction completely. Eventually you're gonna hit the wall. Eventually you're gonna see it's there, right? So it's very easy to really get lost in
whatever identity is playing loud, huh?
I
totally get that. Like, that's what you live for. That's what you, like, your whole, everything that becomes your target. And so everything that you do is circled. It's like around that, you know? And then when things don't go that way, because that's not who you are, it starts to, like, you start to fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? It's that resistance of like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's not. Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the struggle has been, my biggest struggle for just even having to choose myself has been because I right off the bat, I primarily chose, when, like, again, I went into motherhood early. I feel that I struggle when I don't feel, I know for sure everything that I do that has to do with me, even if I do it, the guilt is super loud. The guilt is kicking in, everything. And that's why I get tired and exhausted and I drain, and then I just spiral, because I've pushed myself to the point where just refuse to say, like, I keep saying yes to things, knowing deep down inside I want to say no, or I can't do that, or I can't stretch myself thin. I just, and I still keep saying yes to everything, and I'll just take on whatever, or I'm the one that's pushing forward to do more. And it's because that has been my main, that has been the thing that since I was young, it's been the thing that I feel that I wanted the most. So I took it on, and then it's just been with me. Now being more aware, I realize that that's my biggest guilt right now. It's like, even saying that I get tired, or that I need a rest, or that I need a break, or that I need to get away sometimes. And even though I really want to, just like, it feels so uncomfortable to tell anyone, even my husband, just to say things like, well, I have an appointment today, after work, and I need to go do something. Even telling him that makes me feel I'm super uncomfortable all day long, stressed out because I have to say it, even though his response is going to be like, okay, like, go, or whatever, or the kids could care less. They're just like, all right, bye, mom, but I'm like literally having a battle within myself.
And if you were to pause for a little bit and ask yourself, like, what identity is that? Where was that born from? Like, it's born from a need. So the need, and then the role, and then the identity. And then the identity has behaviors. It doesn't only have behaviors, but it has thought patterns. It also has ways it moves, things it does, things it says. She shows up a certain way. So if you were to go down that just follow it to the root, you would find that if you're the one that created the identity, you could also change the identity or put it to rest at any moment, right? It's like in our hands.
Yeah.
But it's the most difficult thing. You already did it. You're seeing it. Because a lot of the times these identities go unconscious forever. Sometimes we just pass and we didn't even know we were in this identity all of our life.
Yeah.
Right. So the most important part is the awareness, which, okay, I know there's an identity and she behaves like this and she talks like this and she says these things. Why? Like, why? Just questioning, questioning, looking at that identity and just going, like, daring to go in, like, go inside the actual pattern of the I looking at her, saying, all right, well, I see where you were born. I understand why. I know why you move, but just having that awareness of the identity,
like itself. What's moving it, what's driving it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that even in that, I think it's a good. That's something good that we can definitely go into deeper. Like, imagine trying to figure out where all this stuff comes from. I think I'm pretty sure I'm figuring some stuff out when it comes to that, for sure, because I had to do work. Like, I think all of this, preparing for this episode definitely did, like, make me do work. And it went deep for me.
Yeah, for me too.
I was like, okay, I get it. I understand, So what do you think is the shift that that happens when you mentioned earlier, like when the kids stop needing us, or when they stop, like, what's the word you said? You said when they start validate, like they stop validating as parents, or as, so it's kind of similar to, like, what happens, or what is the hurt when they stop needing us? Like, what do you think? Where does that come from?
It hurts because we're no longer being validated. You don't have a mirror that's telling you this is who you are anymore. So then you feel pain, you start grieving, you start saying, then who am I? So you start feeling pain. Pain from the fact that now there's no validation that tells you that you're, I don't know, a mom, whatever the identity is, right? In this case, being a mom, because like I said before, when children are small, they need us. So they validate us. They're every validating single
that
moment.
Identity that we think we are.
Yeah. And when they're independent, they're no longer going to validate you. That when they're little, they need you to survive, right? Mm-hmm. They depend on us to survive. Mm-hmm. When they become independent, especially teenagers and on, they no longer need you to survive, right? Necessarily. They can survive on their own if they had to most of the time, right? So they don't have a need to validate you anymore. And that's why we feel pain.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I've been this identity for 20 years and now you're telling me that you're not going to validate that I'm a mom.
And so the pain comes in, the hurt comes in.
And the pain leads you to deeper questions within your own self.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, I think for sure. I know that it's one of those things where people start feeling like they're failing as parenting because their kids are, because as they start getting older, they start doing their own thing. And sometimes we're just like, God, what a little asshole, why are they being so rude? Or they don't want to hang out with me anymore. They don't want to come around us anymore. And then we just start to think like, oh, well, what are we doing wrong? Or why did I raise such a selfish child? Or, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Or how did that happen? What went wrong? And pain starts to kick in. And then I feel like a lot of people going through like this, like depression at that point too, because they feel like the empty nesters. They feel like, oh my God, my kid doesn't need me. And I do think that society has made it seem like we're supposed to be sad when our kids don't need us anymore. Like we're supposed to be sad. I recently just posted these pictures of my kids promoting, right? That my girl's promoted from 8th grade, the other one promoted from 6th grade, and they're moving on. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's so sad. I can't believe it, And then I just responded with like a little sad face. I'm not sad. But I'm like, that's what society wants us to think, that we're sad because they're growing. I'm not sad about them growing up and moving on. I'm just telling you right now, for me, it's not like, oh, I miss them. I'm so sad they're growing up. They don't even, I'm not. I'm not going to freaking lie. I'm glad. I am not going to lie. I am glad that they're giving me this break. I need it. I'm exhausted. I don't want to. I don't want, like, I had fun. I enjoyed them when they needed me. I had good times, bad times, like everybody else. Yeah. But I'm happy. They're being independent. They're they're doing their thing. Not only them, they're finding themselves. So I at some point too, like, I think I did struggle with my son when he was the first one that led me into this path, right? I learned with him, where I was like, God, he's being a little asshole. I would tell his dad, like, why is he, like, he's this, he's that. And then I really had to sit back and reflect. My son is not, he doesn't love me less. He doesn't care. Not that he doesn't care for me. I know who I am in his life. And I had to really sit back and say, he's finding himself. He's finding himself. He's figuring out his own self, because he's not going to stay with me for the rest of his life. He's going to move on and he's going to do whatever he needs to do in this world. And I need to, I needed to figure out, like, it's just a part of his life. So now every time there's anything going on with him, and even my 14-year-old, well, my kids in general, I keep saying that they're finding themselves. They're trying to figure out who they are in life. They're doing this or doing that. They're like, oh, I'm gonna experience, and I'm okay with that now. So I don't see it anymore as a, like, God, they're being such jerks. I'm just like, whatever. It's part of life. I have to let them be. I think the hardest part for me now that they're growing up is that when they were little, I knew their schedule. I knew their friends. I knew their teachers. I knew, like, most of their problems. I could solve their problems for them. I could figure out life for them, right? I think the hardest part for me right now is that now I feel like I can't protect them from life. Like, that's the hardest part for me. I can no longer protect them the way I used to when they were young, when they were little, younger than they are now, right? That for me has been the biggest hurt, that I can't protect my children the way I used to anymore, because now I have to trust. Yeah. Right. And going from protecting them and holding them like in my heart and holding them in my hands to like, okay, you guys go on and walk around and figure life out. That's scary, right? That's the part that I'm just scared now. But I have to trust that, you know, like I pray for them. I just try and guide them as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not just like letting them go and out and be like, figure out life by yourself. But still, it's like now I have to trust that they're following their own path. And I don't think they love me less or anything like that. And I'm not, like, no part of me is like crying because they're not babies anymore. Like, yeah, I see pictures of them and I'm like, oh, they're cute, but I'm not sad. I'm gonna say it. Thank God they're giving me breaks, because I'm trying to, I need to rest.
Yeah.
You know, like, and they need to figure out life, and I need to like disconnect. I'm in a stage in my life right now where I realize that I need to find myself. I need to figure out who I am, because it's coming very quickly, and I don't want to be like 50, 60 years old and being like, well, I've only known how to be a mom.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm glad that even though it happened, even though I got this awareness at 39, which is like, but I think it's halfway through my life, right? It's like midlife crisis. I don't know. I wouldn't call it a crisis. I would say midlife awareness.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Not crisis.
Not crisis. Definitely not. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm not hurting that they don't need me. I'm more scared that I just can't protect them as much as I could before.
Yeah. I agree.
What emotions come up for you as your children become more independent?
As they become more independent, I would say that with my first daughter, that's where I learned. That's where I got dragged and like learned the hard way. That's where my consciousness began waking up when it came to being a mother. I think at the beginning, the most emotion I would feel was a lot of fear. Like you said, like I wanted to protect her. Like I didn't want her to feel what I felt like, especially when she moved out. And that was what I struggled with, fear. Just fear, like, oh my God, who's going to hurt her? And is she going to be okay? And I just struggled tremendously with that. It took me a while to balance, to ground, to trust. So in this moment, the emotions I struggle with the most in this moment with the kids, it would just be like I would say it's not a struggle. It's more like a focus on guiding them. I would say it's more a focus of that. I don't struggle with as much fear as I did with my oldest, for sure. Like the level of fear is it's as balanced as it could be. I mean, I'm sure I could work on it more, but I'm much more open to them growing. I give them space, like you said. I've learned to give. I used to be like a helicopter mom with my daughter because I wanted to protect her. Yeah. And with my two other ones who are now both going to be in high school, now I give them space. Like I just let them roam. I'm watching, I'm hearing, I'm connected, but I give them space to figure out life, to have life experience. That's what I mostly go through in this moment. And then also learning to hold them accountable, I would say, in a healthy way. Yeah. So that we don't create little monsters in society later. I think that's one of my fears. Just raising a new generation, I would say. If I would say struggle, I struggle with being afraid that I won't raise a good human being because the world is struggling as it is. So if I would say a struggle is that. I'm scared that that they won't be nice, that they won't be kind, that they won't be respectful, that all those things, I would say that comes up from time to time.
Those are the emotions that you struggle with the most.
Yeah.
And like, what a part of that do you feel is like, so I mean, hearing you from the first one, from your first to your second ones, when it comes to being like a parent in your role, like something there shifted, right? I mean, in that identity, obviously, like from being from a, like you said, a helicopter parent for your first one, and you struggled the most. And then at some point you were like, okay, I need to shift. Like you said from the beginning, we're always going to be parents. Motherhood doesn't go, like, you know, it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't end. Yeah. But at some point we evolve, right? Like you evolve and you are able to see things differently. And I think that's when your awareness kicked in, right? When you say like you identify like very as a self-awareness.
Yeah, there was awareness of literally what woke up that part of me was seeing my daughter's pain, which she was feeling because of the way I was being, you know, because of my own ways, my own patterns, my control, my all of that, right? So then hitting rock bottom in that part with her is what truly like boom, like woke me up, and just, you know, hitting that rock bottom. When I was in that rock bottom, it was literally hearing like, you're not willing to be the mother your daughter needs. You just want to be the mom you want to be, but that's not the mom that's working for, like, that's not working for her. She's struggling, right? So then that was the shift. And then from there, learning first, like having discipline with my own self and consciousness. And when I tell you I did everything you can think of to become a safe place, I did it. Whatever I had to do, I did it. Whatever it was, I just did it. And then I put everything that I learned from her, I poured it into the next children, you know? And it doesn't mean that you don't have challenges. Of course, I've gone through challenges, but those challenges I've been able to navigate with a little bit more ease than I ever did with my oldest.
Yeah, for sure. And do you feel that now that your younger ones are getting older, how do you think that your motherhood now is going to be changed, that identity of yours? How do you think it's going to be shifting? Like now that, let's say, for example, they are out of high school, like, what is your identity going to do now? Like, how are you going to shift for you? That way you have, like, now they're older, now they're grown, now they don't need you. Well, I mean, even in high school, they don't really need us as much as they used to. But how does that change for you, for literally for you, for TV, not as a mom?
It changes in the ways that, you know, before when they're a little younger, a lot of my focus goes to them. So now what I'll do is I'll grab that focus and I'll shift the focus to myself, to things that bring me joy, to things that bring me happiness, right? Right now, a lot of my focus, because they're still young, is poured onto them. So when they get older, I'll shift the focus. Doesn't mean my love will stay intact, my guidance when they need me, but I'll just shift the focus, you know, into me, into pouring into me, into getting to meet more of myself, doing things that bring me joy, connecting more probably with my husband more at that point, right? You just shift the focus, you know, but your love stays intact with your children. That's not something that goes away. Like, I'm not scared. And before I was scared. Now I'm like, okay, I understand. There's chapters. They're their own human. They're here for their own experience. And I'm, as a mom, I'm more grounded in that way than I was with my first. Like, I was a mess with my first daughter. Chaos. I mean, a mess. But thankfully now I'm a little more grounded with the other ones. And I think that, I mean, think about it. I already am experiencing that with my oldest. You know, she has moved out. I mean, she lives super close to me, but still, it doesn't mean that because she lives close to me, I'm in her business. You know, I have to maintain, like, let her call, you know, or I'll call sometimes, or she'll call, but not like so, you know, in her world. I respect, she has to have her own space, you know, so it's, you just shift. You just shift. as
do you feel though like you're not like do you feel you're good like when it comes to like you figuring out who you are outside of parenthood? Do you feel like you're good, like, oh, I'm good, I know who I am exactly?
I feel like I'm learning that, right? I feel like life is teaching me that in this moment more in a way deeper level. I can't say like, oh, I see it all the time. I point it every time, but I'm definitely much more aware of it when it shows up. And as the days go on, the weeks, the challenges, everything we face, the deeper that awareness gets, if we allow it, right? If we don't get caught up in a storm, which sometimes it happens, but I'm not gonna say, oh, I gotta figure I know who I am, because there's certain things that could pull you back. There's certain challenges that feel too heavy where you just like in it, you know, you're in the actual storm. But for most of the part, I've been able to stay grounded as like, I understand my children, they're not mine.
Yeah.
I don't control their future. I don't control their mission, their purpose on earth. Like, you know, I've gotten out of that. And before I was like, she's mine. My children are mine. I decide what they do. You know, and that just brought so much suffering to my children.
Yeah.
The control and the fear that I was projecting onto them. It was too much for them to handle.
Yeah.
Way too much. It like destroyed their mental health.
Yeah.
That I was so afraid all the time. That I was trying to control every move because I was afraid.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'll do whatever I need to do now, not to project.
To not
that.
let fear get in the way of like making your decisions for you.
Yes.
Or like acting out of fear. And that's where it all comes from, you know. It's just fear of what we went through, that we just don't want that to happen to them. But I think that's the point where I'm saying like now it's just trusting, you know. Now we have to just trust. It's hard.
Yeah.
That's a part of our identity that we have to learn, is like we have to trust that this is their path, their journey, it's theirs, and we can't control that for them, you know.
And not get so caught up on that identity that I am the mom. Like I am the mom and that's all I am. We have to give ourselves space to understand that you're not just a mom. A mom is a role. You adapt, right? But that's not who you are. Motherhood cannot carry a job of telling you who you are. If you need motherhood to tell you who you are, we're gonna go through some stuff.
I think the question is this: if you ask yourself, or someone asks you, who are you? You know, like who are you as a person? And your answer is, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a full-time employee, I'm a business owner. Like those are all titles, you know. That's not who you are. That's a title put upon you. Now remove the titles. Who are you
Underneath?
You know, not who, like what titles you put on yourself, not the employer, not the CEO, not the whatever you are, not the wife, not the mom, not the sister, not the daughter, not like, who are you? Remove all of that. Who are you? And that's such a difficult question to answer. And so I understand if people don't have the full answer to it, but being a parent can consume you to the point where you feel that that's all you are. And as you guys can see, like it, you know, and a lot of parents can tell, like our whole lives revolves around our children. And so we can become, you know, fear kicks in, then we want to control their lives, and then we are like consuming their lives. And it's just like, we have to dial it back. It's not who we are. I think for me, I'm in a state where, I'm not really scared of my kids growing up. Like I'm not scared of that. I think I am. I fear more is having to discover who I am without them. Like that to me, because I still don't know. I still struggle breaking through the guilt and of like choosing myself, even though I do things sometimes, but I still struggle with the guilt. I fear that, again, as a person who has who is married, that I might struggle when we're both faced with the time with each other that we didn't have. You know, I fear that we're going to look at each other and be like, shit, like, now what? You know? I do fear that. So I do worry about having to figure it out. I think I'm kind of there where I'm like, okay, I think I know who I am now. But the truth is that, yeah, my kids growing up doesn't scare me nearly as much as having to figure out myself. But you know, yeah, lately I think that's been the question. Like, I've been asking, like, okay, if for this whole week coming up, if my kids were good, if we were good, if they were fed, if they were healthy, if they have everything this whole week, absolutely nobody needs anything from me, nothing. And I don't need to worry about work. I don't need to worry about nothing. What would I do with myself? Like, what do I want? Like, what do I want to do? Right. And I did ask myself that question, and I answered, like, my answers really did surprise me. I'd say, like, I would reconnect with friends. I would like to have a wine date with my husband. I like to go shopping, and I'd want to go hiking. I'd want to read a new book. I'd want to journal. I'd want to practice some, like, stuff that I've been wanting to practice, like, so my creative side. I literally would love to just watch Netflix without any guilt kicking in, you know? And I realized that out of all those things that I answered, none of them were achievement. None of them were, I want more money. None of them were, I want to work harder, or I want to, like, grow my business, or I want to, like, none of them were to achieve more. Like, my answers were really, like, you know, just connecting, like, finding joy, being creative, like, wanting to rest, you know. That was my answers to trying to figure out. So I feel like that almost helped me try to figure out who I really am, like, my identity, who am I outside of motherhood. So I think I'm getting there. I'm trying to, you know, figuring it out. And again, I love my children to death. I mean, we love our children. They're like, you know, but if you know, it's super important to figure it out, to try and answer, to remove all those titles right now and answer those questions.
Yeah, and if you really pay attention, all the things that you mentioned, none of them are an identity either.
No, none
or
of
a role.
No, exactly.
They're just who's really speaking when you wrote that is the woman underneath all the roles, underneath all the identities, because we all have many identities, many roles. But who was speaking was the woman under you, the woman beneath the roles, right? That's who was saying, I like to do this, I like to do that. And then maybe tomorrow I'll like to paint. And then maybe, you know, her. And that's who, you know how earlier you said, I don't know what I would do with all the time. You would meet her.
Yeah, I would meet her.
You would meet her and you would just...
Yes.
And you would meet her with your awareness.
Yes.
And you wouldn't need another identity to define who she is. Right? So that's what we would do when our children, you know, or even now, they don't have to be gone to do that. We could practice this since right now. But I understand that our children take a lot of our focus and our energy, but we could also balance, because through us, they'll learn. Through us, they'll learn how to, like,
find
themselves, meet their
own
selves and do life a little bit different, you know? So
that's exactly what we want. We just want them to do life different, you know? And that's really it. And those are the things. I mean, that's how I kind of narrowed down, and I was like, oh my God, I just found myself. For that moment of me saying, if absolutely nobody needed me, absolutely no one, everyone is fine. Those were the things that I chose. And then I'm like, wait a minute, none of that was to have more, or to, you know, to do more of something or achieve something. I was just like, this is beautiful.
And actually, it's not that, you know, sometimes it's not even that people won't need us or things won't come up. It's actually a deeper, like, awareness of, if I didn't need to be defined through these roles, if my mind didn't want a definition for who I am,
Exactly.
would I be able to walk differently in life? Would I be able to walk this life as myself if I no longer had a need to define myself through an identity and through a role? Can I put those roles to rest, those identities to rest, so that my true self can emerge and she could like walk life, right? Because none of the roles, not the wife role, not the mother role, not the employee role, none of the roles that we play in our life can carry the job or tell you who you are. It's not their job. It's like you asking, I don't know, a trash truck that comes and picks up the trash every day to go and cook dinner. Like, that's not their job.
Yeah.
So why would we ask motherhood or the wife role to tell us who we are?
Yeah.
We must ask that to our own selves. We must be so sure of who we are so that we don't need nobody outside of us, no role, no identity, to tell us who we are. I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I bring to the table. I don't need a job to tell me I'm worthy. I don't need money to tell me that I'm successful. I don't need nothing outside of me to tell me who I am. But a lot of us, we're not, like a lot of people, we're not conscious that we don't need those roles to tell us who we are. So we keep seeking for validation externally over and over and over, and just reliving the cycles over and over again.
Yeah. And then you're going to get to a point in your life where you're going to say, where all those titles are going to shed. And then you're going to be left with just your naked self and be like, oh shit, who is this person? And you're going to spiral. So figure out now that you have the time. Ask yourself those questions. You know, dig deep. Don't put a title. Don't say I am my mom. Well, this is what I am. Like, you know, or this is no. Don't say those things. Like, who are you really, you know, beneath all of those? And I don't know, the findings are beautiful.
Yeah.
And eye-opening, you know? And so I'm excited. I'm excited for my kids, you know, for their journey, for me being part of their journey, and for me finding my own journey. Like, yeah, for sure.
Me too. I agree.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, even listening to you is a super eye-opening for me too. Because, But for sure, thank you guys for listening. You guys can find us at Unlocking Our Code Podcast on Instagram. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.